Hey, this is another impromptu video, lightly edited, but it needs to be said because someone needs to stand up for this country, hence the blazer. Also, I think that it's just a sporting opportunity to show that, yes, friendly Geordie sometimes visits op shops. Well, that's not even accurate. I get my friends to do it. But the point is, this is a patriotic episode because our boy Kevin Rudd is in the firing line. Wake up, Australia! Yes, just in case you're an international audience member, Kevin Rudd is our ambassador, who was a former Prime Minister, all-round sick legend. I also really like his voice. Sounds like this. Yeah, in case you didn't notice, there has been a foo-furore that has been brewing for about a year now about Kevin Rudd writing mean tweets about Donald Trump. Sky News has not shut up about it. Look at the one that they just released recently. Foul-mouthed Kevin Rudd should never have been made US ambassador. Foul-mouthed. They're talking about tweets that Kevin Rudd wrote about Donald Trump, and yet Kevin Rudd is the undiplomatic one. Look, you can like the fact that Donald Trump is extremely rude. You cannot sit there and say, oh, the decorum, what happened to diplomacy? When you're talking about someone else dealing with Trump, what Kevin Rudd said is extremely mild in comparison to the things that Trump said. And again, I am not one of these language policing things. And here's the crazy thing, neither is Sky, unless they can use it as a point. Look at the tweets that they are highlighting. Keep in mind, these tweets were made before Kevin Rudd became ambassador. This is just him as a free citizen saying what everyone on Twitter has ever said about him. Look at it. The United States in the past 4 years has been run by a village idiot. Oh my God, that is way worse than anything Trump has ever said about anyone ever. Donald Trump is a traitor to the West. I think traitor might be one of Trump's favorite words though, isn't it? Maybe he's just trying to relate to him at this point. You know, using a bit of his old language back to him, giving him some weave points. This is why they're asking for him to step down, by the way, for those quotes. Look at how much the Murdoch Press's graphics design department went to town on that. And we need to stress this, all before he was ambassador. And if you are going to say that those are absolutely egregious, that Trump really must make an example out of Kevin Rudd for saying the words village idiot. Where's the furor about JD Vance's comments to Trump? That is his vice president, by the way. Where is the furor about Rubio saying, I still believe that he shouldn't be in control of the nuclear codes? That's now his Secretary of State. Why has the press for a year straight been going on and on and on about Kevin Rudd writing a couple of tweets? Well, the answer's very interesting. You see, as we all know, Kevin Rudd is public enemy number one to the Murdoch Press because public can be very easily replaced with Murdoch. If you don't know this as an international viewer, Kevin Rudd was at the forefront of slamming the shit out of the Murdoch Press day after day, pointing out the rank, unapologetic bias in the Murdoch Press and how it just does the bidding of its master. Whatever the master wants that day, it'll just completely flip on a dime of what it was saying before and then just change track entirely. No rhyme or reason to it other than this is what the boss wants. And that is really what controls the entire press ecosystem of Australia because it is the one that controls all the newspapers, all the print, and then all the print gets read out on television and radio, and that becomes the public narrative. So the public narrative is just whatever this very selfish businessman that doesn't even live here anymore wants. And as a result of this, this is the level that they're going to. Completely manufactured story, highlighting these tweets, getting Nigel Farage over in the UK to say those tweets to Trump to start a beef. Remember where he's in there and he's saying, our good friends at Sky News over here.
Our friends at Sky News Australia wanted me to ask you this.
This is the control that Murdoch has in the Anglosphere. He can get Nigel Farage, this is the man that one day could be the opposition leader in the UK, to just relay Murdoch's personal gripes to the President of the United States. And why is he doing that? Purely to try and get Kevin Rudd removed as a personal vendetta. A vendetta because Kevin Rudd has the audacity to point out that the Murdoch Press has distorted the entire narrative of the West into pretty much whatever suits the business interests of Murdoch. This is why he is causing this international tension, when you have the President of the United States beefing with an ambassador of one of its best, and might I just say most loyal, allies, that's causing undue tension. That's a really bad look internationally. If Kevin Rudd is removed, which he's not going to be, but if he was removed, keep aside from the fact that he has to be probably the most qualified man for that job. I mean, the connections that that man has made in Congress and the Senate on both sides of the aisle. I mean, Joe Hockey wasn't doing that. He was taking photos of himself in a fucking tuxedo. Kevin Rudd was working tirelessly to try and get American-Australian relations on track, especially when it comes to dealing with China, because you have to understand this. Kevin Rudd might be one of the most preeminent experts in Chinese diplomacy in the West. Hands down. No, not just because he knows Chinese.
希望你们能够休息一下。
No, it is also because this man has written extensively about the ideology and viewpoint of Xi Jinping, how that man sees the world. In fact, very few people have done academic pieces anywhere near the quality of that. You're talking about a statesman that has had decades of experience with DFAT, decades of experience with dealing with the Chinese, decades of experience of dealing with the Americans. This is a well-oiled diplomat that they are trying to hoist out. So that is terrible for Australian interests to begin with. Terrible for Australian interests. To replace them with what? Barnaby? I mean, he would be a pretty good Australian ambassador. I mean, Kevin Rudd gets blackout drunk at strip clubs. Barnaby doesn't even need the strip clubs. 5 o'clock somewhere, probably in America. To talk about other competent points, the Murdoch Press routinely slams them for, but anyone who is a normal human being should probably see what an incredibly skilled ambassador this man is by the fact that he got Julian Assange freed. That was his doing with the work of Anthony Albanese. They were tirelessly working behind closed doors. That is what happens when you are building up all of these relations in the power structure of the United States. When you take your job seriously, when you know what you're doing, you are able to achieve stuff like that. Stuff that if the Liberals were in, they wouldn't even try to begin with. And if they did, again, like, who are they putting up there? Arthur Sinodeno, stooge. Fuck off. You shouldn't even be the ambassador to Fiji. Well, you should, you fat, lazy cunt. But that's like the level that they should be. This is a man that should be there. And purely for personal spite, he is trying to get Kevin Rudd withdrawn. Trying to set up this beef. I mean, look, we all know how Trump operates. They know exactly what he's doing. Oh my God, he said something mean about you, Donald Trump. That's unbelievable. I am the nicest person in the world, according to me. Keep in mind, we all know. Look, this is what he was saying about Kevin Rudd's handling of the global financial crisis before. Direct quote. I hear good things about the way Australia is being run and running. You just had your financial genius who just got a nice award. Nice award. He was voted the best treasurer in the world at this time. Well, yeah, obviously he's talking about Wade Swan there, but in the first part, he is talking about Kevin Rudd. And then as soon as he hears that Kevin Rudd says something bad about him, he's stupid, he's very stupid, he's faux. So we all know that this is causing undue tension. And for what? For one greedy old Sith Lord's personal gripes. This is the damage that the Murdoch Press is doing to the West. They are damaging the West to the point that they are riffing two of the strongest allies in probably international history. I mean, you know, Rome and Carthage were pretty close, but I think other than that, we're probably better mates than them. And they are deliberately ruining that, deliberately increasing tension because he's butthurt. Do you see how dangerous the Murdoch Press is? Do you see how much damage it does? I, for one, am really proud of the fact that Kevin Rudd, first off, is being a voice for sanity in the US. He might be one of the only lone voices in the entire power nexus of Washington saying, hey, chaps, here's a good idea. How about we don't go to war with China? How about we just keep buying cheap little McDonald's toys? You know what the most infuriating part about it? Every time when it comes to the Murdoch Press, they always pretend to be the we hate the woke warriors, we stand up for free speech crowd. You can't say anything these days. And then, as soon as it suits them, they turn into the most triggered little bitches. Oh, foul-mouthed. Oh, so rude. Same thing that they did with me back in the day. Just, you know, as soon as it's convenient for them. Racist, sexist, This is the same outlet that day after day, comedian triggers the snowflakes. And then as soon as I trigger some snowflakes, no, they're melting. It's pathetic. I hate it so much that they always pretend that they're the bastion that stands up for Australian values because what? Woolies doesn't sell as much Australia Day merch. Now don't get me wrong, as a man who is wearing an Australian flag as a jacket, that's a bloody outrage, that is. However, at least I'm consistent about it. You know what's more damaging to Australian interests than not selling cheap flags that are made in fucking China? Deliberately undermining our relationship with our strongest ally that is supposedly supposed to be protecting us from China. That's a little bit worse. You know what else might be a little bit worse? Getting rid of the guy that is trying to diffuse tension between these two giants. And he has a track record with this. I just need this to be on the record before we go. Copenhagen, 2009. China, US, about to walk out of the climate change accord with nothing being put in place. It was Kevin Rudd that got something done. Why? Because he's a skilled diplomat. It is so outrageous that they are trying to get rid of him. Really, really poor form, even for the Murdoch Press. Speaking of press and poor, I came to my attention that one of my favourite outlets, Independent Australia, they're not doing so well in the cost of living crisis. Now, this is what happens when you don't have this entire network across the globe, this global media empire, propped up by House reruns, I'm assuming. Really, in Australia, virtually all press comes out from the Australian newspaper and then it fans out. That is the narrative setter for every day of the week. They're the ones that decide what the rest of the press is going to be talking about. Yes, you have your little silos like your 9 Fairfaxes, which owns, let's be honest, half the media, but they are really not in the same power broker position as Murdoch. But if you aren't in either of these two silos, it's a tough gig. It is a tough gig to be. As the name suggests, independent in Australia. And they have done some great work over the years, such as they were the lone voice for about a decade saying, guys, the ABC sucks. They were the only ones saying, guys, this is just a Liberal Party mouthpiece now. It has been completely infiltrated all the way from the top down. It is nothing but a bunch of Murdoch hacks that have gone in there. It's a hollow shadow of what it was. They were the only ones that were saying that. They were the only ones who were pointing out the Peter Slipper scandal was entirely just to weaken the Gillard government. They're still doing that work to this very day. And because of current economic circumstances, they're struggling at the moment. In fact, they could close down by mid-December if they don't get a sizable injection of cash. I've already given them some of my money. I think that you should give them a couple of your bucks as well. Try and get them to their target. And if you do get them to their target, I wouldn't mention Patreon dollars either. I mean, cost of living crisis is affecting us all. I think that we need it. We also need it because, you know, we've been taking hits this year as well, and we have done some phenomenal things this year. I mean, just last week we did something very big and investigative. You can go check that out. That is what that Patreon allows us to do. More of that, as well as counter-press narratives, which I think, as I've just pointed out, really necessary service. It also allows us to do things like set up the environmental fund, which we will have some updates on, I'm hoping fairly soon. And we will also have a bunch of other big videos that are coming out relatively soon as well. So it's all systems go. We're all firing off over here. Give us more money and also give Independent Australia some cash as well. Save Kevin Rudd. Hey, so just a reminder, this was a rather impromptu affair. We will be doing that to cover more breaking stories, but for the things that take a lot longer to produce, that's what Patreon's for. If you want to see more of that, you need to sign up. Links below.